welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my January end of the month wrap up. I was about to say end of the year wrap up. I don't know why we're not quite there yet, but yes, so we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the latter half of January. Can't believe January is already over and it's February now. I did not read as many books in the second half of January as I did in the first half of January. I only read 7 books, so I'm kind of hoping that this wrap up isn't going to take as long as most of my wrap ups take. But yeah, so I had a lot of stuff going on, especially with my work. And I think I might have mentioned that a little bit in my mid-month wrap up, maybe. But yeah, we're struggling a lot. I work at a hospital. Everywhere is short-staffed. My department is short-staffed. And then on top of that all, I'm pregnant, so I'm going to be out on maternity leave soon. There's another coworker who's pregnant. She ended up getting COVID, so she was out for like a week. And then that same week, another coworker got an injury, and she's still not back and probably isn't going to be back to work for a while. So that makes us even more short-staffed. And then we were training a new employee, and then I also have students. So it's just, I've had a lot of stuff going on with work. I've been working overtime. And then I usually am able to listen to audiobooks while I'm at work, and that just hasn't really been the case this past like couple of weeks. I've been able to listen to some like here and there, but whereas normally I could listen to audiobooks at work and I'd probably finish an audiobook like one every day or every couple of days, now it's like I finish one audiobook in like 4 or 5 days. So we'll see. That's unfortunately probably going to continue into February because, like I said, we're still short-staffed. It's a little bit better because my coworker is now back to work that got COVID, but she's also pregnant and she's due before me. So once she leaves on maternity leave, it's a struggle right now with work. I'm very stressed out, but I am still reading it when I get a chance to, because reading is my like coping mechanism, I guess, to help me de-stress and to help me not think about work constantly, and then also help me not think about I'm gonna be having another baby and being on maternity leave, and I'm by myself doing it this time, and all the stress that comes with that. So anyway, that was a not really long rant talking about what's going on in my life. Let's get into the books that I did actually read. So the first one we're going to talk about is going to be Dominate by Pam Godwin. This is in the Deliver series. This is the 8th book of the series. So I did finish this series this month because I was bound and determined to finish the series because I love Pam Godwin. So again, like all of the rest of the books in this series, this follows the freedom fighters. All of these are about the characters that Van and, oh, I can't think of her name, the girl from the first book, they captured. So this one is about Tomas. And so he was in the prior book a little bit, and we started to get a little bit of a hint of what this book was going to be about in the 7th book of the series. But this one is about Tomas, and he has been sending, when he was younger, before he got abducted, he was, his girlfriend that he loved died, but they had created like an email account, and he still sends her emails. So then we have Riley, who is our heroine of the story, and she actually ends up getting, like, buying the coat of his dead girlfriend, like at like a thrift shop or something, and finding like that email like information in it, and she like logged onto it and has just been like over like the past like 10 years or something, has just been getting these emails from Tomas that he's been sending to his dead girlfriend and hasn't been responding. And so the last one, he sends like an email kind of talking about that he's not really, he's done sending emails, and that almost as if like he doesn't know if he's gonna live anymore, just because of the situation that Tomas and Luke get into in the 7th book. So she kind of freaks out, and she finally decides to send him back an email and be like, hey, yeah, I've been reading these emails, I hope you're okay. And then they end up meeting, and then things just kind of ensue from there. Tomas is he doesn't like her at first, because he's like, what is going on? This chick has been spying on me, and like thinks that she's a bad guy, and she has to try to convince him that she's not. She just has been reading these emails that he's sending and has gotten to know him and been invested with him and his life and all of that. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I didn't like this one as much. I really didn't like some of the things that Tomas put Riley through when he thought that she was an enemy, even though she wasn't, and she told him over and over again that she wasn't his enemy. And so he does some not great things to her that I didn't really care for, and I really wanted him to have a little bit more groveling before she forgave him. Another thing I didn't really care for was most of the books in this series, and I think that's part of the reason I didn't care for number 7 as much either. So most of the books in this series, like the love story between like the 2 characters, or 3, since there's the one book that has 3 characters, their relationship and their emotions and how they feel about one another, it develops over a long period of time. Whereas then this one, it felt a little bit more insta love. I just felt like she fell in love with him. I mean, she did get his emails and kind of got to know him a little bit more through that over time, but at the same time, their whole interactions with each other, where they were developing their feelings, because a lot of it takes place with him like kind of torturing her, it just felt very fast, and I wanted more time and development between the 2 characters. And like I said, he needed to grapple a little bit more. This does feature a age gap, and this is a older woman, younger man type romance, because Riley is, I think she's in her 40s maybe, and Tomas is like late 20s, I believe. And then, like I said, there's very many trigger warnings. There's trigger warnings throughout this entire series, but this one, there's like non-consensual sex. Like I said, there is abuse. And then, of course, the steam for this one is going to be high steam. Then I read Complicate, which is the 9th book of the series, the final book in the Deliver series by Pam Godwin. I was looking forward to reading this one the most, because this one is about Kole. And Kole was one of the characters from her Tangled Lies trilogy, which I read that first because Pam Godwin recommends, if you ever have an inkling and want to read the Tangled Lies series, you need to read that series before reading the Deliver series. But yes, so this features Kole, who has kind of sprinkled up throughout the whole series. He is kind of like an honorary member of the Freedom Fighters. He actually wasn't a captive, but he is like a secret ops almost type of guy. He's very mysterious. You don't exactly know what he's involved in, but he does end up kind of helping them out on a lot of their campaigns to take down all of these different sex traffickers and sex trafficking organizations. So like I said, this is Kole's book, and I've just been waiting for this one because I wanted him to get his HEA like so badly, and I wanted to know more about him and more about his background, which we do find out more about his background in this book. But he, in this book, ends up getting taken and kidnapped by this like Russian spy type lady. And he's taken by her because she needs footage of something that he was kind of trying to obtain, and then from a prior like secret op mission that he did that went wrong, and he had to kind of what takes place in like Tangled Lies series, that he had to like fake his death because then people were out to kill him and all this other hullabaloo kind of stuff went on. So anyway, this Russian spy lady wants that footage for her own personal reasons, and meanwhile he is her captive and she is trying to get the information out of him, and in doing so the two of them start to fall in love with each other. So I gave this one 4 stars. I did enjoy this one a lot, but my only thing with it was I think I was just maybe a little bit too hyped for Kole's story, and my expectations of it were really high. Not that I didn't like how the heroine that he ended up with, I was wanting a little bit more. I was wanting it to be a little bit more epic, I guess. That's the best way I know how to describe like what I was wanting out of this. And it just didn't quite get there, in my opinion. So tropes, this is a captor-captive trope. There is trigger warnings for like dubious consent. This one didn't actually have as much on the torture side as most of the rest of the books in this series. It was a little bit like lighter on that. And then again, the steam for this one was very high. Then the next one that I read is going to be 7 Sins of Snow by Loxley Savage. This is a paranormal reverse harem retelling of Snow White. And I read this one because I figured it would be darker. And I've also been trying to read, and I'm wanting to try to find books that are like fairy tale retellings to find out like what my favorites of them are. So I thought I would try this one out. And paranormal aspect is vampires, and I just thought this would be really cool. So this is about Snow, of course, who is basically a captive basically of the evil queen. And she ends up like escaping, and she seeks out these people known as the Lurkers because she believes they can help her win back her kingdom. And nobody really knows, at least for her, she doesn't exactly know what the Lurkers are. But then she finds out and starts interacting with them a little bit more. And she finds out that they are vampires, and they want to make her their queen so that she can get all these magical powers to be able to take down the evil queen. So I did not care for this book. I gave this book 2 stars. So the biggest thing that I did not care for, it was just overly gratuitous. So Snow gets tortured a lot by the evil queen, which I don't mind. I can deal with like torture scenes and whatnot. And it wasn't like they were just overly graphic torture scenes. It was just, they just kept going on and on and on. Like she would get tortured and then she would do something, or she would try to escape and she would get captured again and get tortured again. And this was just like the first, like, it felt like almost it was like the whole like first half of this book was just going back and forth with that. And I was just over it. I didn't think it needed to have that many like torture kind of scenes in it. And then the other thing that I didn't care for was all of the men who are supposed to represent like the 7 dwarves, but they're these like 7 vampire kings that help her. They're basically all the same person. Like, I got them mixed up so many times because they're very interchangeable. There was not a lot of differences between them. And then their romance developed very quickly. I did not believe it at all. It was mostly lust. And there was no actual like emotional feelings, but yet she's like, I'm so in love with these people. And I was just like, I don't know. It didn't make sense. So again, trigger warnings for torture for this one. The steam of this one was high. It was just, it needed better plot, basically. Better plot, better development of the characters. I could see this. This would have been better almost if this had been like drawn out, maybe even into a series, or it needed to be a much longer book. And like I said, all the torture kind of scenes needed to be like shortened. That's my opinion on that one. Okay, so then the next one that I read is going to be Sicko by Amo Jones, which I think is how you say her name. This is the first book that I've read by her, and I just picked this up because I've been wanting to try out some of her books, and I've heard really good things about her, and I decided to go with this one because it's a standalone. So this is a kind of a stepbrother romance, sort of. This is about Jade, and let's see here. So her and her brother, she is adopted by her brother's family when she was a baby. So she's known her brother like her whole life, but they are very close. And like you get scenes from like when they were teenagers, and it's like almost disturbingly close. Like you can tell that they both have romantic type feelings toward each other just from how some of their interactions are. And it's just kind of almost, it's pretty well known throughout their friend group. And then you can kind of tell that they're like, their parents can kind of tell too, but like nobody talks about it. Well, then her brother ends up basically almost disappearing. Even though they know he's alive, he just like leaves and doesn't talk to them and doesn't come back. Well, then one day he does come back. Yeah, he comes back into her life, and part of it is because she is moving to LA for college, and that has been where he's actually been this entire time, was in LA. And he joined this motorcycle club and is now the vice president of this club. And they, he's done some questionable things with this club. But anyway, so they're kind of back together and kind of interacting with each other, but Jade doesn't like him and kind of hates him because he left her. But then Jade is also dealing with some things of her own. She has been dealing with this man who has been abusing her pretty much since her brother left. There's lots of stuff going on in this book. I gave this one 3 stars. For the most part, I did enjoy this, but then I didn't really like, there's like some twist ending, like at whatnot, where you find out some of the stuff going on. Like, you find out exactly who Jade's abuser is and some other things. And I just didn't really like how they were done. Like, they just, I feel like Amo Jones could have developed that a little bit better. To me, it just felt like it popped out of nowhere and it didn't really make any sense. And I was just like, I didn't understand it. And it just felt like she did it just to be dramatic. I don't know. I just didn't really care for it. And then also the whole, like, I was wanting to read this because I wanted that whole, like, taboo kind of feeling from, like, a stepbrother kind of romance, even though it's not really like steps. I guess it kind of is. I don't know, because since she's adopted, they're not actually blood related. But anyway, I was really wanting that, like, taboo kind of feeling from it. And I didn't really get that. Like, most of the time, if I'm reading, like, a taboo kind of book, they're all like, oh, this is, like, so wrong. We can't do this. There's this, like, angst to it. And, I mean, there was a little bit in this one, but I didn't really get that as much. When they finally decide to give in, they're just like, oh, yeah, we're doing this. Let's go, kind of thing. Like, I don't know. And then, like I said, everybody kind of already knew what was going on between them before any kind of sexual or romantic things developed between them. So anyway, this does have trigger warnings for non-consensual sex because, like I said, she does have an abuser, an abuse, obviously. And then this was very high steam. Okay, moving on. The next one that I read is much more lighthearted. This one is going to be Lyric and the Heartbeats, which is the 4th book of the Sweet Omegaverse series. And this is the first book that is not written by Catherine Moon in the series. This is actually written by Lana Kole, I think is how you say her name. And this is about Lyric. She is an Omega, and she is a singer and a songwriter, and she really wants to have her own band and be this big music star, basically. So we come into this book where she has, like, a record deal, but they want her to form her own band. So she is, like, holding auditions and trying to find people to be in her band, because then they are all going to be going on tour together, performing all these songs that she wrote. So this is a reverse harem romance, as basically all of the books in this series are. And she ends up forming a relationship with all but one of the members of the band. But then at the same time, all of the members, they all form a pact together. But it's basically her. Most of the members are, like, alphas, and then there's, like, one beta male that she forms a relationship and she ends up bonding with. I gave this one 3 stars. This was fine. I felt like Catherine Moon's stories were just much more emotional than this one was. This one just didn't have as big of a punch to it. And then I just didn't care for, like, some of the members of her reverse harem showed up much later on in the story, and I honestly just felt like we didn't really need them, and we didn't get as much development with them just because they did show up later on. And I just, like I said, I didn't really think that we needed them. And then, like I said, I was wanting more of an emotional punch to this, and it just wasn't there for me. But this also was very high steam. Okay, then the next one that I read is going to be The Dugout by Meghan Quinn. So this is, I can't really tell. I think these books were originally supposed to be in a series, like the Brentwood Boys series. But now, like, if you look on Amazon, they all say that they're, like, standalones. So, I mean, I guess she's thinking that you don't necessarily have to read them as a series in order. but I kind of did that anyway because I read the first book of this series last year, I think. And I had issues with that one. But I decided to try the series again and give it another chance. So I read this one. So this is, all the books in the series, these are baseball romances. The Brentwood Boys, that is college, like a college baseball team. So we have Carson, who is a member of the baseball team at this college. And he's very grumpy at the start of this book because he was going to, like, his best friend and him were in baseball in their junior year, and his best friend got drafted and he was expecting it to get drafted too, but he ended up getting an injury in his junior year. So now it's his senior year, and this is like his last chance to make an impact and to try to get drafted to become a professional baseball player. But he is like still just, he almost hasn't like gotten his mojo back with how to like play. He's still having issues with it, and it's making him very angry. So then along comes this girl, and I did not write down what her name was, but he ends up running into this girl who is a bit of a wallflower, but she is kind of known as like a baseball guru because she grew up on baseball. Her dad and older brothers love baseball, and she just is absolutely in love with the sport. And they get together because he wants her to kind of help him perfect his gameplay, and she does, and she helps him, and they kind of start to form a romance together, and their romance is really cute. For the most part, I really enjoyed this book. I gave this 3.5 stars because of the ending of this book. This was going really well, but then it ended up having, and what I find a lot of like either contemporary or like romantic comedy type romances is that there isn't any kind of conflict involved. So what the author does is they put something in there that causes them to break up in like the third act, basically. And I don't like that in my books. It just is annoying, and I feel like it's not very good writing to have that. Whereas there could have been some other kind of conflict already there from the beginning that would have given them their relationship that conflict so that they can kind of resolve it, instead of creating something and just putting it in their place. It just, I don't know, it's very annoying and I don't care for it. And then she also did this thing that she did in the first book that I didn't care for, which is like time jump. It wasn't as bad of a time jump as in the first book of the series, but it is still there, which is another big pet peeve of mine. So I don't know. I'm debating on if I'm done with this author or not. I know a lot of people really love Meghan Quinn and love her books, which I have read some of her books that I loved, like the she has that small town romance that I read, and I think like the Swoony Feeling is one of the books in that series, and I really enjoyed that one. But I don't know, this one I'm just like not caring for. I think I'm probably at least done with this baseball romance series. Maybe I'll try something else from her, but I feel like she has so much potential because I really love her writing style. And like I said, the beginning, like to like 75% through of this book, I was loving this. It was great. It's just, she had these elements that I just felt like could have been done better and are just things that I just don't like when authors do. So, let's see here. There is trigger warning for death of a parent in this book. And then I would say the steam of this is actually more medium. They do have some like, They do have some more kind of like almost like foreplay kind of scenes to it, but at the same time I would still consider this medium. They do have like basically one, maybe two sex scenes, but then the rest of it, it's like it's either a like fade to black kind of thing, or it's they just talk about it after the fact about how much sex they're having, and you don't actually see any of it. Okay, then the last one that I read for the month of January is going to be A Kiss at Midnight by Eloisa James. This is my first Eloisa James book. This is part of her fairy tale series. So this is a Cinderella retelling. So this follows Kate, who is being forced by her stepmother to pretend to be her stepsister, because her stepsister has gotten pregnant, and her and the baby's father are wanting to get married, but in order for them to do so, they have to get the approval of his uncle, who is a prince. I think he's a prince of like Russia or some sort of like Russian country, something. Anyway, he's a prince. So, but for whatever reason, which I didn't quite understand, she can't go. Basically, well, no, she can't go because she's starting to show her pregnancy, and that would be very scandalous, you know. So she has to go pretend to be her stepsister with her fiance, and they go to this castle, basically, where his uncle, the prince, is staying at, and they're pretty close in age, the uncle and the fiance. So like, I wouldn't consider this like an age gap type romance necessarily. But anyway, so they go there to try to get the approval from him for them to get married. But that prince, who his name is Gabriel, upon first meeting Kate, he's absolutely intrigued by her and wants to know more about her and doesn't really want her to marry his nephew. He wants to kind of keep her for himself, even though he can't marry her. She would have to be like a mistress to him, because he needs to marry somebody who is wealthy, because him and his estate are this estate that he was given to him by his brother, who is the king of their country. It basically is in ruins and is in a lot of debt. So he can't marry anybody that doesn't have a lot of wealth in order for him to kind of fix things at this estate. So yeah, so that is their story, and you know, their feelings develop and how they're going to end up working out together, kind of thing. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. Some of the plot was a little bit convoluted, I think, but overall I really enjoyed the interactions between Gabriel and Kate, and I really enjoyed their love, like how it developed throughout this book, and then how things ended up resolving at the end was great. And like I said, this is a Cinderella retelling, and this is going to be like medium to high steam. I almost feel like most historical romances are in that realm. They're medium to high. But yeah, so that's gonna be that one. So there we go. So those are all gonna be all of the books that I read in the latter half of January. I hope you enjoyed this video. So if you did, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. And if you're wanting to see more videos from me, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can see whenever I post new videos. But otherwise, I will see you all in the next one. Bye guys.